Hey everyone. It's commonly known that the US economy is predominantly consumption driven. Almost 70% of our GDP is built on the sales of both goods and services. That's a big part of why the pandemic has been so crippling for the US. We've basically shut down a big portion of our economy with the shelter-in-place provisions, and that's why so many are anxious to risk a second wave with an early reopening. The April retail sales numbers just came out, and as anticipated, they fell significantly by 16.4% on a month-to-month basis. That's the single worst monthly drop in the history of the country, a phrase I've used all too frequently these days. This is particularly important because it signals that the second quarter drop in economic growth will be severe. Now, we pretty much already knew that, but the data is beginning to validate the outlook. It also carries big implications for all types of real estate, not just retail center owners. About 2.2 million retail trade jobs have been lost since February, and that will weigh on apartment rent collections going forward. Currently, apartment investors are collecting just a few percent below their normal rate. But in all likelihood, people are still able to pay rent because of the stimulus checks and because of the expanded unemployment benefits, which run out at the end of July. Now, naturally, retail rent collections have seen the most significant challenge, with collections running between 50% and 70% depending on tenant composition. About 98% of necessity retailers like grocery chains have paid their rent, while only about 12% of gyms and fitness tenants have paid. Industrial real estate will also feel the impact. Yes, the rise of e-commerce will benefit industrial demand, but traditional retail still delivers about 5 times as much consumption as the internet. And those products use warehouse space too. So we have to weigh both sides of that equation. With numerous states beginning to cautiously reopen, including a partial reopening of restaurants and even some malls, it's possible that the tide of retail sales and job losses will be stemmed. However, this move could position the US for a second wave of the coronavirus, and that's a pretty serious risk. So what's all this mean for real estate investors? We're actually hitting a phase where investors are getting enough information to make some strategic decisions. Portfolios can be evaluated, financing is starting to straighten out, at least for apartments, office, and industrial properties, and investors have a nominal sense of their rent collections. So this empowers investors to begin planning. Now is a very good time for investors to review their assets, determine which ones are going to need help, which are well positioned for the remainder of the downturn, and which ones may face short-term challenges but have upside potential later. As you consider your portfolio, both short and long-term goals have to be considered. Then you can recalibrate your plans for each asset. At some point, the global health crisis will come to a resolution, likely through some type of medical advancement, and by planning now, you will be best positioned for that recovery. As always, you need to keep your eyes on the horizon.